Okay, so today we're going deep on some pretty cool, almost underground tech.
Mm.
We've got articles, blog posts, all kinds of stuff, and they're all about these alternative computing ecosystems.
Oh, cool.
Like they're asking, what if we completely reimagined how tech works? You know?
I know what you mean. What I find really interesting is that these sources we're looking at, they go way beyond just the usual new gadgets and stuff.
Yeah.
They're really like exploring different philosophies of computing,
Yeah.
you know, like both in terms of hardware and software.
Exactly. Okay, so first up, we have EXN.
Okay.
So imagine a virtual machine, but with this retro gaming vibe.
Uh-huh.
Instead of just like crunching numbers and stuff, it's all about running graphical applications.
Interesting. So how does it do that?
Well, the way it does it is really interesting.
Okay.
EXN is designed with simplicity and portability in mind.
Okay.
You can run EXN programs on almost anything, a desktop computer, a tiny little electronic device, even a classic gaming console.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
So picture this. You could have a game running on an emulator on your computer,
Right.
and that same game could, with some tweaking, run on a handheld console that someone built with a Raspberry Pi or something.
Wow.
That's the kind of versatility we're talking about here.
That's really cool. That DIY aspect is really appealing too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If you're into tinkering, you could actually build your own UX emulator from scratch.
Really?
Yeah, the specs and the source code, it's all open source.
Wow.
So it's a playground for anyone who wants to just get their hands dirty.
That's awesome. I love that.
And people are making some really wild stuff with UXN.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, there's this program called Orca, which is a live coding environment for music and visuals. It's almost like a digital instrument built on this retro-inspired virtual machine.
That's a cool concept.
And then you've got Donsel, which is this like dungeon crawler game with this really cool pixel art style.
Oh, neat.
It's like taking a classic game genre and reimagining it within this whole unique UXN ecosystem. It's like, wait, you can make that with UXN?
Yeah.
And there's even something called Okwani, which the developers describe as a bizarre universe.
A bizarre universe.
I know.
I mean, how could you not be intrigued by that?
Exactly.
So it really shows just how much potential UXN has to create these experiences that are just completely different from anything you'd find in mainstream computing.
Totally. It's like stepping into an alternate reality of tech.
It is.
Okay, so say you're as hooked on UXN as I am.
Yeah.
How do you actually get started with running these programs?
Well, you would need an emulator,
Okay,
which is basically a piece of software that mimics the UXN hardware.
got it.
And the good news is there are emulators for pretty much every operating system out there.
Okay, cool. So once you have that, it's pretty straightforward, right?
Pretty much. You just launch the emulator and tell it which UXN program you want to run.
Makes sense.
Right.
And because UXN is designed to be so self-contained,
Right.
you don't have to worry about installing a bunch of extra software libraries or anything like that.
Exactly. It just works.
It just works.
Yeah.
All right, so we've gone deep into this retro future world of UXN.
We have.
But now let's jump to something completely different. Have you ever heard of the Busy Status Bar?
I have. It's a really intriguing little device.
It is.
I mean, it might look like a simple status indicator at first glance,
Yeah.
but it's actually packed with all these features that make it a productivity powerhouse, especially if you're someone who likes to customize and tinker with their tools.
It's so true. It has a built-in Pomodoro timer, customizable apps. You can even integrate it with other software you use like Zoom or Google Calendar.
And what I find really cool is that it's built with this open source, hacker-friendly philosophy.
Yes.
You can actually create your own apps and integrations using its open HTTP API.
So cool.
So if you're the kind of person who likes to get under the hood and tweak things, this device is like a playground.
It's true.
Yeah.
So it's not just for displaying your status or whatever. It's like this miniature customizable command center for your workflow. Exactly.
And speaking of workflow, you mentioned the Pomodoro timer.
Yes.
For those who haven't tried it, the Pomodoro technique is all about working in focused intervals, usually like 25 minutes separated by short breaks.
Right.
And the Busy Status Bar makes it super easy to follow this technique.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And then there's this feature called Busy Status,
Right.
where you can set custom messages and even graphics to let people know your availability.
Uh-huh.
Like, imagine your Busy Status bar automatically showing a do not disturb message when you're on a call or something.
Oh, that would be great.
I know, right? It's like it understands your work patterns and helps you manage your time and focus.
That's the dream.
And get this, even if you don't have your computer or your phone handy,
Okay.
you can still control everything directly on the device using physical buttons, a scroll wheel, and a selector.
Wow. So it's like this totally self-contained productivity companion.
It really is. Okay, so we've explored a retro-inspired virtual machine
We have.
and a productivity gadget that's secretly a hacker's dream.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about AI.
Oh, cool.
Our next source is a blog post by Simon Willison, and he's built some seriously cool tools using something called Claude artifacts.
Ah, Simon Willison. I've followed his work for a while. He's always building really interesting things.
He is.
So what has he been up to with these Claude artifacts?
Oh, he is so excited about this feature.
Right.
He's using it for everything from quick little prototypes to tools that actually solve real-world problems.
Oh, wow.
And the crazy part is he says most of these tools took him less than 5 minutes to build.
5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes.
That's incredible. For someone like our listener who's all about learning and experimenting efficiently, that's huge.
I know.
But what exactly are Claude artifacts? What makes them so powerful?
Okay, so Claude artifacts are part of this AI assistant called Claude.
Okay.
And basically, you can use Claude to generate interactive web apps, complete with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
So it's like having an AI coding partner
Yeah,
that can just whip up a working web app based on your instructions.
exactly, in like minutes.
That's wild. It's like mind-blowing.
It is. And Simon's blog post is full of examples of the cool things he's built with this.
Oh, really?
Like what? For instance, he made this tool called URL to Markdown with Gina Reader.
Okay.
So you put in a URL, and it uses an API to give you a markdown version of all the text on that page.
That sounds super useful for anyone who works with online content a lot.
I know.
I can see how that would save so much time.
Totally. What else? Okay, there's another one called OpenAI Audio,
Okay.
which shows how you can use artifacts for more complex tasks. This one actually involves recording audio and then sending it to an API for processing.
It's amazing how much functionality you can pack into these little web apps. It seems like Claude artifacts are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI-assisted development.
They are?
Are there any limitations?
Yeah, so Simon mentions that right now artifacts can't make direct API calls or link out to other websites,
Oh, okay.
which can be a little limiting.
Yeah, I can see that.
And in fact, he's thinking about building his own alternative to address those limitations.
Wow, that's ambitious. But knowing Simon's work, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls it off. He really seems to be pushing the limits with this technology.
He really is.
Hmm.
And it's super inspiring to see someone so passionate about experimenting and creating with these new AI tools.
I agree.
But before we get too carried away with the AI world, let's talk about something a little different, shall we?
Okay.
Something that involves a mix of strategy, skill, and maybe even a touch of luck.
I like where this is going.
Let's dive into the world of crokinole.
Crokinole.
Crokinole. Have you heard of it?
I can't say that I have.
Okay, so get ready to be intrigued. Imagine a game that's like a cross between shuffleboard and curling, played on this beautifully crafted wooden board.
Okay.
That's crokinole in a nutshell. It's been around for centuries, originating in Canada.
Wow.
But it's having a real resurgence in popularity lately.
That's cool. So how do you play? What's the objective?
So you flick these little wooden discs across the board, aiming for higher scoring areas.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The center hole is like the jackpot.
Uh-huh.
It's worth a whopping 20 points. But here's the catch. There are these 8 pegs surrounding the 15-point region, making it trickier than it looks.
So it's not just about power then. It sounds like it requires a good deal of precision and finesse as well.
You got it. And to make things even more interesting, if your opponent already has discs on the board, your shot has to hit one of theirs to be valid. Otherwise, your disc gets removed and you score 0 points.
Oh, so there's a strategic element of defense as well.
Oh, for sure.
You can't just focus on scoring. You have to think about blocking your opponent's shots too.
Exactly. And to understand the real skill involved, you have to know about the open 20.
The open 20.
Yeah. That's when a player manages to flick their disc directly into the center hole without hitting any other discs along the way.
Sure.
It's like the ultimate crokinole shot.
I bet that's pretty rare even among experienced players.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even top-level competitive players only manage to pull off an open 20 about 65% of the time.
Wow. That's still pretty impressive, though.
It is. But get this. We found a video of a match where both players, Connor Reinman and Justin Slater, who are like crokinole legends, each scored 8 open 20s in a row.
8 in a row.
8 in a row.
What are the odds of that happening?
Well, according to our source, the odds of 2 top players both having a perfect round,
Okay.
where they make all 16 of their shots as open 20s,
Yeah.
are something like 1 in 277 rounds.
That's incredible.
It's like witnessing a basketball player sinking 20 free throws in a row during a game or something.
It's a truly remarkable display of skill and consistency. I can only imagine how exciting it must have been to watch that match.
Oh, it was incredible. But here's the funny thing. Even with all that skill, a perfect round often gets messed up right at the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. Data from various tournaments shows that the first to miss usually happens on the very first shot.
So it's a game that really demands constant focus and attention.
It does.
One tiny miscalculation and your dream of a perfect round is over.
Exactly. But here's the thing. There's another way to score a 20.
Oh, there is?
And it's called the ricochet 20.
Okay.
This is where you intentionally bounce your disc off one of your opponent's discs to send it into the center hole.
So even when a direct shot isn't possible, there are ways to outmaneuver your opponent and still get those high-scoring points. That adds a whole other layer of complexity to the game.
For sure. And as the board gets more crowded with discs, the strategic options just multiply. It's not just about aiming for the center anymore.
Right.
You have to position your discs defensively,
Right.
create obstacles for your opponent, and set up potential ricochet shots.
It sounds like a game that really requires you to think several moves ahead, almost like a chess match played out with wooden discs.
Exactly. And even though it looks simple on the surface, there's so much depth and complexity to it.
Wow.
No wonder it's been captivating players for centuries.
Well, you've definitely piqued my curiosity. I might have to try my hand at crokinole sometime.
You should.
But before we lose ourselves in the world of wooden discs and ricochet shots,
Okay.
we have one more stop on our technological tour. Have you heard about what Stripe's been up to lately?
Oh, yeah. I'm all over this.
Yeah.
Most people know Stripe for their payment processing platform.
Right.
But they've been quietly building some really innovative tools for developers.
Oh, cool.
They recently released something called Workbench, and it's basically designed to make life easier for anyone who's building integrations with Stripe.
So it's like a toolkit specifically for developers who are working with the Stripe API.
Exactly. Stripe has always been known for having great documentation and being very developer-friendly, but Workbench takes things to a whole new level.
I'm curious, what are some of the things that make Workbench so beneficial for developers?
Okay, so one of the coolest features is this thing called the inspector.
Okay.
It basically lets developers look under the hood of any object in the Stripe dashboard.
Oh, wow.
Like customers, subscriptions, invoices, you name it. They can see how those objects relate to each other, inspect the underlying data, and even see the actual API requests that are happening in the background.
That's incredible. That level of transparency must be so helpful for debugging and understanding how everything works. It's like having X-ray vision into your Stripe integration.
It totally is. And if a developer needs to test out an API call or try out a new feature, they can use Workbench's built-in shell. So this brings the power of the command line right into their browser.
I see.
So they can send all sorts of requests without having to write a bunch of code.
Wow, that's a huge time saver.
Right. It lets developers experiment and iterate quickly without getting bogged down in setup.
Exactly. What about monitoring? How does Workbench help developers keep an eye on how their integration is performing?
Oh, Workbench has got that covered too.
Okay.
It gives you this comprehensive overview of your integration's health.
Okay.
So you can see your API success rate, get notifications for any errors, and even see recommendations for API upgrades.
So it's like having a dedicated team of engineers constantly monitoring your integration and alerting you to any potential issues.
Pretty much. And the cool thing is, if there's a sudden spike in errors or something that needs attention, you can easily share a link to a specific view within Workbench with your team.
Oh, nice.
So everyone's on the same page.
That's awesome for collaboration.
Right. And if you're just starting out with Stripe, Workbench can be a lifesaver.
How so?
Well, it's got this built-in API Explorer that gives you interactive documentation and code examples.
Oh, that's nice.
So you can see exactly how to use each part of the API and get started building your first integration.
So it's not just for seasoned developers then, it's also a great learning tool for anyone who's new to the Stripe ecosystem.
Exactly. It's like having a personal tutor walking you through the process of building a Stripe integration.
It sounds like Stripe is really committed to giving developers the best possible tools and resources.
They are.
And with Workbench, they've created a platform that could truly change the game for how developers build integrations.
They absolutely have.
Yeah.
So we've journeyed from a virtual machine with a retro gaming twist to a productivity gadget that embraces customization.
Right.
To an AI-powered platform that makes building web apps a breeze.
Yeah.
And we even made a stop in the world of competitive crokinole.
That's quite a range.
I know, right? And that's just the beginning of our deep dive. There's so much more to uncover.
I know. I can't wait to see where this exploration takes us next. Who knows what other surprises await us in these sources?
Right. It's like we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But for now, we're going to have to take a short break. We'll be back soon to continue our journey, so stay tuned.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome back. I'm still thinking about all that cool tech we just talked about.
Me too. That's a lot to take in.
I know, right? So much cool stuff.
Definitely ready to dive back in.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Where were we?
We were talking about Simon Willison and his work with Claude Artifacts.
Oh, right. Simon Willison.
And how he's not just embracing this new technology, but he's actually looking for ways to improve it. Remember how we talked about those limitations with API calls and linking?
Yeah, I remember.
It's like he saw those constraints not as roadblocks,
Yeah.
but as opportunities to push the technology even further.
It's a great way to look at it. I love that mindset.
It is. It's the hallmark of a true innovator. He's not just accepting things as they are. He's asking, how can we make this even better?
Right.
And the fact that he's thinking about building his own alternative to Claude Artifacts,
Right.
that just speaks volumes about his commitment to empowering developers and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
I totally agree. It's like he's saying, okay, this is cool, but what if we could do this too?
Exactly.
It's that kind of thinking that leads to those groundbreaking advancements.
I know. Speaking of groundbreaking advancements, have you heard about Claude's new computer use capability?
Oh yeah, I've heard about this. This is huge.
It is. It's a total game changer. It's like Anthropic, the company behind Claude. They've given this AI the ability to actually interact with computers in a way that we've never seen before.
It's crazy. I know, right? We're not just talking about basic commands here.
Yeah.
Claude can actually look at a screen. Wow. Move a cursor, click buttons, even type text, just like a human would.
That's wild. So it's like
Yeah.
having this digital assistant that can actually use your computer to get things done.
Exactly.
The implications for this are just huge.
They are.
Especially for developers, this could be revolutionary.
Right?
Imagine automating all those repetitive tasks, building and testing software way faster than you could before, or even conducting research by having Claude navigate the web and gather information for you.
It's like having a super-powered research assistant.
Right.
And never gets tired.
Exactly. And it's not even just about the speed and efficiency.
Yeah.
This could fundamentally change how humans and AI collaborate. Imagine working alongside Claude,
Well-
each of you bringing your unique strengths to the table.
That's really cool. It's moving beyond the idea of AI as just a tool and into AI as a partner, a collaborator.
Exactly. And this isn't just some futuristic concept. It's
Yeah.
happening now.
Oh, yeah.
Claude has actually been tested on this platform called Osworld, which basically evaluates how well AI models can actually use computers.
Yeah.
And guess what? Claude is crushing it. It's outperforming other AI systems by a significant margin.
I believe it.
It's really impressive.
It is. But of course, with any new technology, especially one this powerful,
Uh-huh.
we have to think about the ethical implications, the
Yeah.
potential risks.
Oh, absolutely. Anthropic knows this too.
Yeah.
They know that there's a possibility this technology could be misused
Right.
for spam, spreading misinformation, or even worse.
Yeah.
So they're trying to be proactive about safety. They've developed special classifiers that can detect when Claude is using a computer and flag any actions that look suspicious.
That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
It's reassuring to know that they're taking those steps to mitigate the risks.
Right.
I mean, as AI becomes more sophisticated,
Yeah.
it's crucial that it's developed and used responsibly in a way that benefits humanity.
For sure. But this brings up a really interesting philosophical question.
Okay.
As we're teaching AI to use computers more like humans, are we also, in a way, teaching it to think more like humans?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a really deep question. It really highlights that complex relationship between humans and AI.
I know.
And while we don't have all the answers yet,
Right.
it's something we need to think about very carefully as we continue to push the boundaries of what AI can do.
Definitely. It's a conversation that needs to involve everyone. AI, researchers, developers, ethicists, society as a whole.
Totally. But before we go too deep down that rabbit hole of AI philosophy,
Okay.
let's circle back to something a little more tangible yet equally fascinating.
Okay.
The game of Crokinole.
Oh, yes. Crokinole. You know, learning about this game has really been eye-opening for me.
Oh.
It's so much more than just flicking discs around a board. It's a game that requires a lot of precision power and an understanding of how the game works.
It really is. It's like this delicate dance between offense and defense,
I like that.
where every shot can change the game completely.
Yeah.
You have to be thinking several moves ahead,
Uh-huh.
anticipating your opponent's strategy,
Oh, yeah.
and setting up your own plays.
It's intense.
It is. And the element of luck just adds another layer of intrigue.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even the most carefully planned shot can be thrown off by a weird bounce.
Absolutely.
And what seems like a bad position can suddenly become an opportunity for a brilliant counterattack.
I love that it's that blend of skill, strategy, and chance
Yes.
that makes Crokinole so captivating to both play and watch.
Speaking of watching, I'm still amazed by that match we talked about earlier,
Oh, yeah.
where Connor Reinman and Justin Slater both scored 8 open 20s in a row.
Oh, no. It's insane.
8 in a row. Those odds, 1 in 277 for a double perfect round.
It's mind-boggling.
It's like witnessing something truly exceptional. It's like a moment that elevates the game to an art form.
It really does. It reminds us that even in a game that's been around for centuries, there's still room for pushing the boundaries and achieving those new heights of skill.
Totally. And you know those impressive open 20s?
Yeah.
They're not the only way to score big in Crokinole.
Right.
Remember the ricochet 20?
Oh, yes.
Where you bounce your disc off your opponent's disc to get it into the center hole.
I know. It's such a clever move. It requires incredible precision
Yeah,
and a deep understanding of the physics of the game.
it really does.
Yeah.
It adds a whole new layer of complexity to the strategy.
Absolutely.
It's not just about aiming for the center anymore. It's about using your opponent's discs to your advantage.
Yeah.
Setting up those trick shots.
Right.
That can totally change the game.
I can see that. It's fascinating how a game that seems so simple on the surface can have so much depth and nuance.
I know, right?
No wonder it's been around for so long.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears again for a moment and go
Yes.
back to the world of developer tools, specifically Stripe's Workbench platform.
Yeah.
I'm still impressed by how thought and care they've put into creating a tool that really empowers developers.
I know, right?
No.
It's like they've thought of everything a developer might need when working with the Stripe API.
Seriously. From debugging and testing to monitoring and learning, Workbench provides this comprehensive set of tools
It does.
that just streamlines the entire development process.
Totally. The inspector feature, for example,
Right.
is a perfect example of how Stripe is prioritizing transparency and making sure developers really understand how things work.
Being able to see how different objects relate to each other,
Yeah.
inspect the underlying data,
All
and
right.
even trace the flow of API requests. That's
Yeah.
so valuable for both debugging and just learning how the system works.
Totally. And for those times when you just want to try something out quickly,
Right?
the built-in shell is a lifesaver. It
Yeah.
brings the power of the command line right into your browser.
I know. So you can experiment with different API calls and try new features without having to write a bunch of code.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all about empowering those developers
Yeah.
to move quickly and efficiently.
Right. And what I find particularly impressive is how Workbench integrates monitoring seamlessly into the development workflow.
Oh, yeah.
Having that constant feedback on how your integration's doing
Yeah.
with notifications for errors and suggestions for improvements,
Yeah.
that's crucial for building really solid systems.
Totally. It's like having a whole team of engineers constantly looking over your shoulder, making sure everything's running smoothly.
Right. And even if you're brand new to Stripe, Workbench has you covered.
Yeah.
The built-in API Explorer with all the interactive documentation and code examples
Yeah.
makes it so easy to understand how to use the API and get started.
It's like having your own personal tutor,
It is.
walking you through every step.
It's clear that Stripe is really committed to creating a developer-friendly ecosystem.
They are.
And Workbench is like the shining example of that commitment.
For sure. They understand that the success of their platform really depends on the success of the developers using it.
Exactly. And that brings us to a bigger trend we're seeing across the tech world,
Really?
this growing focus on developer experience.
Yeah.
It seems like more and more companies are realizing that the best way to encourage innovation is to give developers the best possible tools and resources.
Absolutely. It's a win-win situation.
Right.
Developers get access to these powerful platforms, and companies benefit from all the creativity coming from the developers.
Exactly. And this spirit of collaboration is leading to some incredible advancements across every industry.
I know. It's so cool. But speaking of incredible advancements, there's another development in the world of AI that we need to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how we were discussing Claude's ability to use computers just like a human can?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that capability has opened up some truly mind-blowing possibilities.
Really?
Get ready, because we're about to go deep into some serious AI innovation.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
But first, we're going to take a quick pause to gather our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back in a flash to finish up our exploration.
Okay, sounds good.
And we're back for the final stretch of our deep dive.
Time flies when you're exploring cutting-edge tech, right?
It really does. We've covered so much ground today, from those retro virtual machines and productivity gadgets to the incredible world of AI and even that surprisingly strategic game of Crokinole.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. And it's amazing to see how all these seemingly different things are pushing the boundaries of what's possible in their own ways.
It's like we're seeing a whole new wave of innovation happening right now,
Yeah.
where people are willing to challenge conventions and just try new things, and that's leading to some incredible progress.
I totally agree. And you know what else? I think there's this underlying theme of empowerment that runs through all these sources we've looked at. Yeah. Like whether it's giving developers the tools to build amazing things or giving people the power to customize their own tech.
Yeah,
There's this sense that the future of tech is becoming more open and accessible.
that's a really good point. It's not just about the technology itself. It's
Right.
about who can use it and what they can do with it.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so exciting.
It is. It opens up so many possibilities.
Think about UXN, for example.
Okay.
It's not just a quirky virtual machine.
Yeah.
It's a whole community of people who are passionate about retro computing and DIY and finding new ways to do things with technology.
It's a great example of how open source and that spirit of collaboration can lead to really cool innovations.
Totally. And, that idea extends beyond just UXN.
Hmm.
A mindset, a way of approaching problems and seeing those opportunities where others might not.
That's a great way to put it.
And that brings us back to Simon Willison and his work with those Claude artifacts.
Right.
He's not just building tools, he's sharing his whole process, his excitement, his willingness to just try things out and see what happens. It's like he's saying, hey, come join me on this journey. Let's see what we can create together.
I love that attitude. It's
Yeah.
that kind of openness and shared exploration
Yeah.
that makes the tech world so dynamic and exciting. It's something we can all learn from.
So true. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listener with something to think about.
Okay, I like it.
We've explored all these separate things, UXN, Busy Status Bar, Claude artifacts, even Crokinole.
A pretty diverse mix.
I know, right? But what if we could connect them somehow, weave them together into something completely new?
Now that's an interesting thought.
It is. What if we could use AI like Claude artifacts to build custom apps for a device like the Busy Status Bar, all running on an efficient system like Yox?
Wow, the possibilities are endless. It's a good reminder that the most exciting innovations often happen at the intersection of different fields. When people step outside of their usual areas and start combining ideas in unexpected ways.
Exactly. It's about taking the best of what each technology has to offer and bringing them together in new ways.
That's where the magic happens.
It is. So to our listener out there, I say this. Don't be afraid to explore, to experiment, to make connections that others might miss. You never know what amazing discoveries are waiting just around the corner.
So well said. Embrace the unknown challenge, the status quo, and never stop learning and growing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note of inspiration, we're going to wrap up our deep dive for today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. See you next time.